All right, so peace and love, family. It is July 29th in the fake alleged year 2020. And we're just gonna, me and Chris are gonna talk about righteous anger, okay? And this is, again, we feel like a lot of, not a lot, I'm not, again, not making a judgment on the spiritual community, but just because I, sit down and meditate a lot and cultivate a lot, that doesn't mean that we remain in a passive, active mode where we don't call out the injustices of the world. So, like, for example, and we're going to use just Christianity, the Jesus as an example out of the Bible. And you could see the first thing we have here in the background is Jesus coming with a sword. Okay? So this is something that what we call the powers that were, as Chris likes to call them, they don't want you to kind of understand that spirituality isn't just this thing where, you just kind of sit around under the bamboo all day and you don't call out, or you just kind of suppress your nature, especially being like a man, a real man, wanting to stand up for the community and stand up for what's right and for what's righteous. And when I say righteous, this isn't just where we're not talking about good versus evil per se, even though we are. Now, when I say righteousness, I mean, and I'm standing up for the natural process of nature. So when we talk about love, we're standing up for love. The righteous anger is an active principle, okay, to bring love into this world. And any darkness, any cult, any group, any religious leaders, anyone that's leading the people away from themselves into self-denial is what we can quote an evil act. So it's basically, if there's a group of people, just like Jesus said, woe to you religious leaders, okay? And basically, here's the thing that we have to understand. You have to stand up first for your own self-love. And love is when you move into full self-acceptance and trust in nature. And when I say nature, you also trust in the cosmos, in God. All these words are interchangeable for a natural process that goes on within to expand the consciousness. You see? So anything that is seeking, or any group that is seeking to hack this process, we have the right to have controlled aggression, you see? And it's something that Chris did bring up here, and he actually brought up where Jesus also had a whip, and he started to whip the bankers and the money makers in the temple, and he overthrew their tables because they were trying to turn the temple, into a business by using taxation, interest, basically bringing slavery. So you see here, just because, we sitting and we meditating, he went out and he fasted, right? And got into his mode. But that doesn't mean that you don't have emotions, that you don't stand up for what's not right. And Chris, I don't want to just take the floor the whole time,
Gosh, dude, I can't believe how you just go on and on. It's unreal. How do I deal with this? Oh no, dude. I think Jesus was dry fasting. Like, I think he had been a little gluttonous and then went into a dry fasting phase and was super intense. And he's like, fuck, what are you guys doing? They were selling, people were selling and doing their thing in the temple. But what he really was pissed about was the fact that these money changers were collecting interest from people. And what they would do, they would clip a little piece of metal off the coin as tax. And they were stealing. So the modern day equivalent of this are the banks. Think about it. And we're talking about righteous anger. I'm right now, just like just like my brother Mark here was doing. I'm talking about some of the things that we should speak on. Everybody is tied into the money system, and the money system is rapacious. They devalue your currency. So they basically decrease the value of every hour of your life by by you being in the system and accepting their paper money because you're forced into it, really, in many ways. You're not totally forced into it, but if you want to be in this society, you use their dollar, and it's ever devaluing. All currency is always devaluing.
Yep.
And it's because they print and print and print. And that's a form of taxation, of usury. And on top of that, they even tax you in a million ways on that devaluing money. It's like they get you from every angle. So,
Yep.
geez, now I have tried to explain this to pastors in churches. I used to be a Christian, and I knew everything. I read the Bible backwards, forwards. I got the version that supposedly was carried over by the Pilgrims in the 1400s, or it was written in the 1400s. The King James, all these Bibles were written with a divine right of kings written into the Bible. And I'm not trying to get religious or anything here, but for people that do refer to the Bible, there's a divine right of kings. And royalty did not want themselves questioned by the people. And the people were many forced to take the English church as their church. And if they didn't, they were killed, tortured, otherwise coerced. So what I'm getting to is that usury is hidden. It's been hidden. The only religion that I know of that even pays attention really to usury is Islam. And when I first found out about usury as a Christian, I was really disappointed to learn really fast that nobody knew anything about it. And if they did know something or think they know something, their version of it was, oh yeah, it's like the payday loan places. They charge excessive interest. But if you actually read your own book, they describe usury as the taking of interest on loans. And who takes loans? The people that take loans are usually the people that don't have as much as you do. They need it. And so it's like an extra burden on people that are already burdened, whether through, their own choices, whatever. It's always people choose what they choose. But regardless, this was seen as wicked. Even all through the Bible, like 70 plus times, it's called wicked and used as a tool against the enemy and all this stuff, usury. So when Jesus went in there into this temple and he saw the money changers doing what they were doing, it angered him, righteously angered him. And that whip wasn't just some rope, which seems to be pictured here. Looks like a rope. There were pieces of stone, pieces of bone.
Yes.
It was intended to tear the flesh. He was pissed. So, whether people think he existed, didn't exist, whatever, the point is, this is what the religious books say. All of them talk about these kind of stories. And usury was seen as wicked. People were actually punished, sometimes killed over it. And bankers have always been seen as scumbags. And the tax collector, always seen as a scumbag. That's why that story Robin Hood in the movies, they came out with that. It wasn't take from the rich, give to the poor. It was take from the government and give back to the people. That's what Robin Hood was really about.
Right.
It was
And
reverse robbing.
Absolutely. And just for me, I'll put in there that what people are starting to wake up to the fact that all governments are flat broke, and they've always been broke. And the governments, which are subservient to the Federal Reserve, and the Federal Reserve is also owned by the Vatican. The Vatican runs the central banks and the world banks. Now, a central bank is a war bank. Okay, that's where they store the money to fund the wars. So when you see the coercive force of human beings that pay taxes, we are the ones that are funding the very world that we despise. So when you start to look at it, governments have been infiltrated by a shadow government, but the shadow government are bankers. Now, the way for governments to get loans, governments don't just, since it's okay, put it like this. The Federal Reserve prints unlimited money. Now, money, the fiat currency, people say that it's not backed by anything. I don't think that's true. The fiat currency is backed by soul, by us. Mm-hmm. Because, one, the minute you're born, what do they do? They trick your mother into signing a contract that's cloaked as a birth certificate. And, you know, we're starting to hear about a lot about this now when it comes to common law, okay, versus the man-made written laws, right? So they get your mother to sign a birth certificate, which is an actual contract. And the bankers, so they take that slip, that contract, and they bring it to the banks and say, hey, look, we got a slave, we got slave labor, or we got a new soul that could actually provide a coercive force and labor. So they use us as collateral, okay, to get loans from the banks. And then we're the ones, because our mother signed the contract, we're the ones that have to pay the loan back. Now, for example, just to bring it down to earth, this is the same thing that takes place with a bail bondsman when someone is coming to repo your car. So, for example, if your friend or brother or close family member is in jail and you don't have the money to bail them out, what you can do is put your car up as collateral, okay, and say, okay, well, I'm going to put up my car as collateral so he can get out of jail. And once he gets out of jail, he just has to make the payments. Now, if the payments aren't made because the contract was signed and your car is used as collateral, if he does not make the payments, they come in after your car, even though it's a situation that he got himself in. The government put themselves in debt. But because the contract that your mother signed that was cloaked as a birth certificate, that you now are the one that bailed the governments out. So they have the nerve to come at us like we're the servants. But when you look into the Social Security number, there's a TDA, Treasury Direct account, that the governments have access to. And the older you get, the more valuable, the more money you have in that account. Okay? Now, there's people, I heard, okay, that did the paperwork, authenticated their birth certificate, and they got access to their Treasury Direct account. Some people paid bills with it. I heard some people even bought land with it, okay? But if you remain as what they call the straw man, or basically as a citizen, which is a slave, the government actually has access to your Treasury Direct account. And the reason when you don't pay taxes, they come after you because you're the one now that's responsible for paying it off. And this is how all governments have created what you call this fake money. But understand, money is only proportionate to broke people, to people that actually get up and work every day. If everyone was given $1 million in a town, no one would want to get up and be a servant. The only reason that $1 million has any type of value is because you have broke people that are willing to serve you. So think about that. Money is nothing more than a coercive force of the collective human being. You see, yep. All governments are broke, all of them. It's my 5 cents.
I think that's more than 5 cents. The GDP, also gross domestic product of a country, is the value of each citizen based on the taxes they'll pay, based on their output while they're alive in their working years. And that dollar amount is multiplied and added, and you come up with the value of a country. So when the government goes for a loan, they base it on their collateral, which is you. You are the collateral. You are the cow, the chattel. Just like a dairy will figure out how much milk output they expect from each cow and base the value of their dairy on that if they go to sell it. That's the same thing with a country when they go to value how much money they can borrow, and money in quotes, both of those things in quotes. It's all based on you, slave. That's how they do it. And you know what? And we're bringing this around. Mark and I are explaining a few things. We're going to cover a few other things too. But sometimes you have to get a little pissed off to shake you from your sleep so you realize what the hell's going on around you. I mean, hey, if you're content with you living your life like that, then that's fine. That's your business. But a lot of people, an increasing number of people who are finding this out, they're not content. And the world's an ugly place when it's filled with slaves, quite honestly. I have a hard time. It's hard to bear for me, and because I can tell who the slaves are. Honestly, if you're wearing a mask, you're a slave. Straight up, you're a slave. Because you are obeying. Because you are needy. And, I don't want to insult everybody because I know there's people listening to this that probably feel like they have to sometimes, or they throw a bandana on, or, whatever variation of covering your mouth. Shut that mouth, slave. Whatever you use to do that. This is the reality right now. This is what's going on. And you know what? It pisses people off. And that's okay. You're not pissed off. This is where I've been, whatever word you want to choose, lambasted, scolded, told that I was living in my ego because I've been pissed a few times about this whole thing. And it's mainly to wake people up, honestly. It's not because of me. Like, you know what? I can deal with this. I actually am thriving right now in this current reality because I couldn't stand the fake one where everybody's, acts like they're happy and they're not. And now you see the real. Now you see the real. Like, people don't have this bullshit to cling to anymore. So now the real them is coming out. And they're finding out, and it's been good for a lot of people, actually, because a lot of people are spending more time with family and stuff like that. But there's kind of a reality, too. You're in this system, and as long as you are completely reliant on and living within this system, life's going to be really hard for you, especially in the coming months and years. It's going to get harder because this system is dying, and people are going to go down with it. And I'm at least trying to sound an alarm. Just like Mark, we're both doing this. Instead of trying to just hide away out in the forest or the jungle, which I'd love to freaking do right now. But now I wouldn't love to do it because I know I wouldn't be doing what my intuition is telling me to do. And my intuition is telling me to empower people. Just like Mark, I don't want to speak for you, Mark, but I know we've talked a lot behind the scenes, and we share a vision of being on kind of the edge of this system, kind of, outcasts really, but incasts for the coming world. And a lot of wisdom and knowledge that we're being given right now. We're being given. We're not, necessarily smart people, by definition, college smart, whatever, but we have a yearning for truth and a yearning for wisdom. And we have I know, because I know my brother here, I've talked to him enough, I know his vibe, and we have a yearning to expose the lies, to stop the oppression. And the only way that happens, and to empower people, and the only way that happens for some is to get fucking pissed off sometimes. Not in the ego. Not in the ego, man. But just because we see it. Yeah, go, brother.
And definitely, like, to use that controlled aggression and push it towards empowering yourself on self-knowledge, empowering yourself on willpower, empowering, so something me and Chris was talking about, the anger pushes you to service work. And the visions that we have, and I think that, we wanted to bring this up, and I think this is the first podcast where we were talking about creating, and not just talking, we're going to do it, food rehabilitation centers, and it's, again, food rehabilitation centers. And I actually was also talking to Chris about something that I've been studying, and, it just deals with the psyche of the human being as well, because people also have to understand that the body is compromised in two ways. Yes, there's toxins, there's food, there's blockages, but there are people that do watch, that do watch their toxic intake, but they still may have emotional distress because of the attachment to a bad relationship. And that could be a spouse, that could be money, that could be anything, right? Mm-hmm. And it's just, again, unplugging these etheric ties. These are etheric ties that you have. And to be able to take control of your life and self-empower yourself. And the reason billionaires exist is only because of human addiction. Human addiction. If we were to live in a line with truth, a lot of the things that we need, you will realize, are nothing more than mental creations, crutches that we created for ourselves. And then the funny thing is, what is the main reason why people sell out their community? Why do brothers sell dope to their own community? Why do people join certain cults again and do crimes against humanity? What will they tell you? They'll say, look, man, I had to eat. I had to do what I had to do. So there's also some in Marcus Garvey. Brothers sold out Marcus Garvey for some bags of rice. Some bags of damn rice. And me and Chris were also talking about these missionaries that paint a smile on their face, these Christian missionaries that, again, I know that the people that are doing it may have good intentions, but I'm talking about the overlords, right? That know the real purpose behind it. If you go to Haiti and certain parts of Africa and certain parts of the world where there's poverty, everywhere is just free bags of rice. And there's a pandemic of pure spiritual laziness, because I could guarantee you that rice has some neurotoxin in it. It's a neurotoxin where you can't think clearly. And since it's given freely to you, you don't have to work for it, right? You don't have to. So it makes you lazy. It is a form of suppression. So understand this. What we call a satanic energy, or the force that wants to enslave you, it doesn't come to you looking like a demon. It comes to you dressed in a 3-piece business suit, telling you political promises, providing for you all that you think you need. And what that does, that compromises your path. You see, so we have to see that there's certain charitable donations that take place that do not empower our people or empower ourselves, but that keeps us subservient to the very system that we're trying to break free from. Now, I can say this again before before I give it to Chris. Family, we have to first accept that there is no such thing as a system. There is no system. It doesn't exist. It only exists because we choose to participate in it, based on choice, based on what we think we need. You see, when you start to break free, you realize that the system is a figment of our own imagination. We make their dreams come true. They make our nightmares come alive. But when you break free, you realize everything is about building an entirely new paradigm, a new man, new human being that isn't subservient to these needs. All right? So go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, well, about the system, you're right. The system is only there because we support it with our energy. We manifest it. It still exists, but you can make it a decreasing influence on your life, but just by your choices in life. And I'm not going to go deep on that right now. It would take way too long. You know, but paying taxes is one of them. When we report our income taxes, you're paying those directly to private banks. And one of the most well-known and largest is the Rothschild Bank. And people used to hear that name and instantly, oh, conspiracy, crazy conspiracy theory. Yep, there's Jesus with a sword, ready to kick some ass on some religious leaders, probably. Who were the government? Who were the government of that day? But this Rothschild thing, you can actually look up the Rothschild Bank online. They have a website. And when you read what they do, you know what, dude? I'm going to look them up right now.
You want me to look them up? I got my screen up.
Sure. Sure. Yeah, it'd be easier than switching around.
Yeah, Rockefeller.
No, Rothschild.
Oh, Rothschild, okay. Foundation?
Just try bank. Let's see what they give us. Under all, I guess. Nope, not that one. Gonna have to scroll down. No Wikipedia. There we go. Rothschild and Company.
Yes.
Okay, now watch. I want to show people what they say here. Okay, we're not going to see it there. Let's see. What we do. How about what we do? Let's try that on the menu. Yeah.
Global wealth and asset management.
They have one. Okay, I don't know where it is. Maybe merchant lending, direct lending. Let's try that. Let's see what they say. It's very clear what they do. Direct lending, customized senior supported debt financing, privately owned businesses across European. Okay, that's not what I'm looking for. But basically, if we can find it.
Who we are, corporate governance, group leadership.
Curious,
Ooh,
yeah.
They got careers, students.
Hey.
Career development. Uh-oh. We pride ourselves in treating people as individuals. Yeah. Our aim is to help each of our employees reach their potential.
You love them, don't you?
We are committed to providing bespoke training and advanced opportunities to help people meet their goals and objectives.
Hey, before I say any more, I was going to say that I don't know how many times great-grandfather, Joseph Kerr, supposedly, okay, this seems a little more historic and believable, but there was a book written about this guy. It's called The Lost Senator Joseph Kerr. He was in the Revolution, which was every war was bullshit. But he was in the U.S. Revolution against Britain, supposedly, even though they own the country still. They own the U.S. He just spoke out on the banks big time, always. And but he was a tycoon. He was like the equivalent of a present-day multi-billionaire, but he hated the banks. And really did care for the people that were around him. You know, not everybody that makes billions of dollars is a piece of crap. most of the people that make billions of dollars in this present day system are pieces of crap, because
Yes.
it takes that mindset of being a piece of shit to rise to that level in this society, because this society is garbage. And I'm not saying it was much better then. I really don't know. I just know that this guy, my ancestor, Kerr, was the equivalent of a billionaire, multi-billionaire. They called him a tycoon. He lost everything. He went to prison like 3 different times because he was speaking out against the banks, telling people not to get loans from the banks.
Wow. Wow.
So they hated him. And he would lend people money. I don't know how he did it. I'm going to guess without interest, because at that time people were more knowledgeable about usury. And, you know, it was closer to the time where they were executing people even for practicing it. But anyways, I just wanted to throw that history out there. But the Rothschilds, the bank, what I've read on this website, if we can find it, is that they loan money to governments. They loan money to countries. They say it on here.
And you know,
Hmm?
have you ever read a book called The Economic Hitman?
Yep. What was that guy's name? He's a CIA dude. Yeah, I know.
Yep, Confessions of the Economic Hitman. This guy,
Yeah.
oh, my Lord.
Yeah, all through Central America, they ruined all the economies down there.
And hey, bro,
Yeah.
me being from Bahamas,
Mhm.
it's the same thing, because so what this is a book that all you guys should get, the listeners. It's really interesting. When I read it, for example, here in the Bahamas, this is the way that they get people, or they take control of small countries. They have a salesman. Okay, what he does is, like, for example, before they put the Bahamas on the map, no one really knew about the Bahamas. It was just maybe some little small islands, Exuma, where Queen Elizabeth, you know, would probably, you know, they went to like Exuma, they probably would go eat. I don't know what the fuck they did, but they came here. But Bahamas was then put on the map. So this is what took place. They would have a salesman come to these small countries, and he would then convince the leaders of these small countries to then get loans from the world banks to build airports, ports to bring in ships, to build big hotels. And what these salesmen would do is they would have a fake ass economic chart where they will project how the economy would start to grow. Okay, so like, for example, all US contractors, European contractors would be in on it. And they would basically, and then the world leader, not the world, but the leaders of the small country, they'd be like, you know what? I think this would be a good idea. This could bring a lot of opportunity to the country, which it does, but they don't tell you how it dies very quickly. And then now you owe them all this money. So like, for example, they say, okay, we're gonna build a big hotel. So that's when Atlantis came to the Bahamas. We're gonna build a big airport. We're gonna put Bahamas on the map. We're gonna advertise it all throughout the world. But what they didn't tell, sorry, excuse me for my language, what they didn't tell niggas here is that we would be serving out towels and handing out fucking iced tea. Yep. And they would bring in their managers for their businesses, because they invested into Atlantis, they invested into these big hotels. They bring in people of high positions from other parts of the world. Ain't no Bahamian have a high position, you know? So then what happens? We become a nation of beggars, because after a while, when tourism becomes the main industry, we forget to feed ourselves, you see? And then what takes place? After a couple of years, just like what they did to Bolivia, what they did to Argentina, they do it to all countries. They be your friend for a while. The economy is booming. It's the same story everywhere. The economy is booming, and then 10, 20, 30 years down the line, everything run down. The woman selling themselves, you know, to foreigners. And now it's just a big ass shit show. And the people even lose their culture. When the TVs come and all this stuff, you know. So this book, The Confessions of an Economic Hitman, he confesses that that was the plan the whole time. So now they tell you that you'll get these loans, but the hotel, the airport, the money you make from the flights, the money you make from booking the hotel, you will be able to pay off this loan and the country will thrive. But no country has ever been able to pay off the loan. And since you can't pay off the loan, you know what they do? They come back and say, hey, well, since you can't pay us back, give me that land over there. Let me get that land. They start to change the laws in the country. Mm-hmm. Now, the police are just writing tickets, parking tickets, speeding, everything's ticket to pay off the loan, where now the law enforcement ain't even about the community. The law enforcement, the government now, is all about getting us out of debt. Now we have value-added tax to the Bahamas, and more money is being funneled out of the country. And guess what happens? It's an engineering of suffering. The whole thing is to engineer slaves and to engineer more suffering. You see? So and he confessed that was the reason he would go to these small countries. You see? So again, this fake ass money that we can't pay them back, we then still owe them. They change up the laws. We give them real resources, land, give them access to so many things, because we can't pay them back. We're like, oh well, you owe us now, niggas. You know, so it's just seeing from my small country here, you know, and look, it's run down. Here's run down as shit. Ain't nothing here.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't want to cut you off starting another example of exactly what we're talking about. So I want to make sure you're done, dude, because that hits close to home, man. That's like where you live. So you saw that. You saw some of that happening.
And you see, look what it says here, Chris.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Who exposes mind-blowing methods that are created for the purpose of destroying economies and countries. And that's what I've seen here in Bahamas and everywhere. Everywhere. They did this too.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yeah, man. So the reason the reason we were on the Rothschild website, and I don't know if you could find this if you go back to it, but I'd like to find it if we could, if it's possible. I don't want to spend, I don't want you to waste time, but maybe while I'm sitting here yapping right now, we could find it. But basically, like you said, these guys, through the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, loan money to governments and countries. By default, countries, because the government, they control the minds of the slaves, the chattel, the cattle, the taxpayers, whatever you want to call, whatever fancy word that makes people feel good about their slavery, citizen, whatever. They're paying the bill. But these guys, Rothschild, they'll go in, loan money to governments, and it's on this website. They tell you that they loan money to governments. Now you tell me, if somebody's in a position where they've got the amount of money, which is fake, you think these guys ever lifted a shovel in their life except to bury their best friend after they stabbed him in the back? I mean, that's the kind of people they are.
Mm-hmm.
They loan money to governments, and it's not even money, but it's all in their facade. Paper money only has value because we perceive it to have value. But so they loan this so-called money. They promise, like you said, in the Bahamas example, it was a hotel tourism kind of industry thing. Other countries, it's infrastructure like freeways and roads and public works type stuff. And they'll promise billions, give them billions. But this country has to pledge their quote unquote wealth to support that loan. And part of that wealth is the output of their people, the output of their minds, like in the case of many countries in Africa that are very mineral rich and are mined out with diamonds and everything else, all the other gold and whatever else. So this is pledged by the government of that country to these people like the Rothschild and Company, who have no tangible assets except that which they have stolen from people by way of paper money. They have tricked everybody to think their paper is worth something, and then you trade your literal blood for it. This is what we do every day. We trade our blood and sweat and tears and our time and life to paper with, monopoly money. In fact, a little kind of a joke. I don't know if it's still like this because they've changed some of the bills in the U.S. to these newer looking bills. But if you find some of the ones from the 90s and 2000s, maybe, I think, and match up the $20 bill with a Monopoly bill and do the same with a 10, a 5, a 1, it's the same effing color as the Monopoly money, dude. It matches up in the denominations.
Wow.
You tell me they didn't do that shit on purpose just to put it out there. Yeah, just so you guys, you'll never figure it out, or you won't want to see it or believe it. But guess what? What we're giving you is bullshit. But hey, we put it out there, so we did our part. Karma, we're covered with karma, because that's the only real law, is karma. Natural law is the only law. And I know we're going down.
Right.
I'm going on and on. I know we're going down all these different paths here, but I wanted to make one more statement about these Rothschild loans. If a country defaults on the loan, they are expected to give up the rights to whatever amount of mineral shares,
Yes.
mines, whatever they pledged to be collateral on this loan. It's big, big stuff. And then these banks will send in their own people. Well, guess what? If you get uppity, if the government changes its mind and says, fuck you, we're not paying you. Guess what happens? It's freedom and democracy time. Send in, the leader is, he's gassing his people, like in Syria. He's a tyrant, like Gaddafi. He's a tyrant. And you know what? That whole thing's probably a big bullshit show anyways. Gaddafi's probably alive somewhere for all I know. However, he was supposedly working on a gold dinar. The people loved him for whatever reason, maybe because of the propaganda, because I don't trust any governments at all, any of them. But he was supposedly working on a gold dinar, which would have freed them from the clutches of the Rothschilds, no more paper money. And they were backing, all of their currency was backed with gold. That's what they were going to. In Libya, they were completely, there were no homeless people in Libya before the U.S. came in and freed them, quote unquote, freed them. And this isn't a jab at people in the military, but honestly, you're working for the banks, man, if you're in there. And see, I know this is like Awakening 101 kind of stuff that we're talking about right now, but it gets around to the point of what Mark started talking about right at the start and what we're trying to get back to, but we're explaining a few things. There is some realization that's needed. You're not just going to go from tax-paying happy slave to all of a sudden you're an ascended guru out, up in the Himalayas. And that's not even, I'm not even saying that's the pinnacle of everything, because I don't want to be out, away from everybody. I want to be around people. I want to help people. That's how I feel. But there has to be some anger, man. That's just how it is. It's called discomfort. It's discomfort at learning the truth. And when you learn the truth, your natural reaction sometimes is anger. It has to be sometimes. It has to be that. And it's not an ego. It's not an ego. It's you get angry because you see it as a lie. It's a huge lie. You temper that anger as you go, and then you become not affected by it. Like right now, I discuss this with passion. I don't have an anger inside. I do not have anxiety over this anymore. I used to, just like most people, I think. But you find out about it and your natural reaction is anger. And I think it's righteous anger. when you do not act out by hurting people, for one. Yeah, if you don't hurt people, that's one thing about it. But that anger should drive you to change yourself, make yourself less of a victim, make yourself more independent in every way possible, which is how it's the only way to grow, man. It's the only way to find out about your true self. But anyways, I've talked long enough. So what you got, brother?
Absolutely, man. You know, yeah, you know, it's just, I just kind of was going through this thing here, how.
Oh, sorry, I kind of hit you. You were reading. I could keep going if you want. I got all kinds
No,
of stuff.
I was going to read a portion of this.
Okay.
Where
Okay.
we're talking about, let me see. Well, where was the, again, working in mind.
While you're looking, I want to throw out there.
Yeah, go ahead.
Something this podcast, if you guys can't tell, we're just talking. That's what this podcast is. And most of them are that. We'll set a subject, but we usually just start talking. But this system that we have, or not that we have, but this system that was set up by the liars, that could be non-existent tomorrow if everybody ignored it and did their own thing. This system is built on total deception on what this earth actually has as far as electricity, food that we really, need we don't need, but we could enjoy it. And all we would need is the fruit trees that are growing. We don't need this food system bullshit. But this system runs on oil. It runs on destroying nature. And we don't need any of that. We don't need it. If we were doing it right, there wouldn't be any perceived shortages of anything. And whenever they talk about food shortages, that's just your drug dealer threatening to cut off your drug supply.
Wow.
Yeah.
Right, man. Wow.
I love our chats, dude.
That is a good way to put it, because when you look at it, that becomes your God. Like when you look at a crackhead, what the supplier really kind of runs the crackhead's life, So when you really look at it, they are nothing more than the suppliers. They're just the suppliers, and they're like, look, we can cut this shit off. And when the worst part is, even being here in my little small country, if we were to take away the alcohol, let's say all liquor stores closed and there was no more alcohol, that alone you would start to see the spirits lingering in people, you see? Because people satiate themselves every day because of what? They don't love their life. They don't like the choices they made. A lot of the men here, the minute they get off from work, they're not going home right away. They go into the fucking bar. They go into the bar to drink. So imagine if we took away the alcohol and weed, because the weed ain't necessarily the same like it was. So let's say we took away the alcohol, the weed, and our favorite foods. And the funny thing is, what if there was only fruits? Let's not even talk about taking away food. Let's just say there's only fruits to eat, fruits and some veggies. You know that you would have people that would complain and say that they would starve. Do you know that people would go in the food store and literally would feel like if there was nothing but fruits and stuff like that, people would complain and they would starve. They would think that they will starve to death. That's how addicted it is. Now we live in a city. I live in a town, and I'm sure everyone feels the same, where all we do is sedate ourselves. Every day we go into self-sedation. Every day. And now we're not thinking clearly. We don't have visions anymore. Everyone's motive is tied to making money, making money. Let's hustle, nigga. Let's do this. Let's do that. Everything is inclined to money, pussy, money, pussy. And then there's no work that's ever done, because if people only get up to go and work for money, nothing is ever done for the community. So there's never any work done. Never, not really. Not when it comes to actually putting in work of stuff like this. Like, we're not getting paid. I don't get paid to sit and talk to young brothers and stuff like that. And because I'm not thinking about that. But if everything is tied to making a dollar, there's no work that's ever really done. And then you can't even trust certain people, because they'll sell you out because of a need that they believe they need to survive. Like you said, the suppliers. All right. So again, the controllers, the trillionaires, are just big ass dope boys. That's it. What you think a food store is?
It's a drugstore.
So, and it's crazy. So even when you look at this book, this is a portion of the book where it says, economic hitmen are highly paid professionals who cheat countries around the globe out of trillions of dollars. They funnel money from the World Bank, the U.S. Agency for International Development, and other foreign aid. Notice the quote, aid, or didn't we say that? These organizations that assist, foreign aid organizations into the coffers of huge corporations and the pockets of a few wealthy families who control the planet's natural resources. So the best way to control is to give.
Bro, you should read that next sentence where it says their tools include, just if you want.
Oh, yeah, right? Yeah. Their tools include fraudulent financial reports, rigged elections, payoffs, extortion, sex, and murder. They play a game as old as empire, but one that has taken on new and terrifying dimensions during this time of globalization.
And this guy was one of their dudes that they used. And I'm going to tell you, I'm just going to say it kind of quick, but I've heard this from the horse's mouth from two different people, just that I've known.
Yes.
I will leave it at that.
Oh, I thought you were going to say so.
Yeah, no, that's it.
So now you see, family, it's in reality, even the biochemistry of our bodies are, even just the cells themselves are almost like, they almost match the system. Because when you have have depleted forms of nerve energy, right? When your body's depleted of energy to high levels of toxicity and emotional distress, the cells will be more parasitic, and then you will be more inclined to going to sedate yourself every day. And sedation is a very expensive habit. It's really expensive. Now imagine you as a man, you're not the only drug addict. You have your wife, you have your 3-4 kids, so now your life, and not to say, yeah, you're taking care of your family, but your life now, and the average person that's getting paid here on the island, you're not getting paid much. So your whole life is just a vicious cycle of trying to fuel an appetite that will never be fulfilled. And it robs you of your energy. So we connect, and notice how we connect in the body's biochemistry to the slavery of the banks, and all of it just being big ass drug suppliers. They pimps. Even religion is a drug, So everything has become backwards. And now it's time for us to build dynasties and build true organizations where you can come to these retreats to these food rehabilitation centers. And I want to be, for me, I want to be the first one to help me get off this shit, because I'm still not fully off some of my quote unquote vegan drugs. So even me, the first step is becoming a conscious addict. See, it's different if you someone that believe you need this and you survive off it, compared to being a conscious addict. That's two entirely different people. That's two entirely different people.
And bro, I can tell you right now, just so people know, I'm still addicted to taste. Honestly, it's not a body craving like a hunger or a thirst, but I love to taste juice, like usually orange juice. So that's something that I honestly, taste buds, I think they're the hardest. That is the hardest one. I'm busy conquering it, but dude, it just takes a lot of work, man. When you've been born as an addict and you've been an addict your whole life and all of your good memories are tied in, like really, if you think about it, most of your past good memories are usually with family or friends, and it almost always involved a meal of some kind.
Always. And you gotta and then drinking, and then like it's it's always something. And again, if you decide to drink juice here and there, it's just, you notice too though, when you decide to do it, it's a ease, you have to then have the willpower to not overindulge and then become addicted again. So
I would tell it. Yeah. Go ahead, dude. Sorry.
Yeah. No, you good. So, it's like, for me, like when I would be only on fruits, every time I taste a cooked meal, it would throw something off for me, and I would have to rebuild that willpower again. That's why they say it's better when you on the raw, on the raw diet, it's actually better to just be 100% raw than 99% raw and 1% cooked. Because usually when you're 99% raw and 1% cooked, it usually turns to 5%, then 10%, then 80%.
I was going to say, dude, about the juice thing that I mentioned, it's more, I think for me, I just have this kind of attitude, like, I don't give a shit what people think. Like, I'm not some sideshow. I'm not trying to prove. The only thing I have to prove is to myself. That's it. I don't have to prove anything to anybody. I already know what we are. I know we're meant to be. I know that our cells are not fed by food or drinks. And in fact, the drinks, when you drink them, you're literally flooding your body, you're flooding your cells. And the fluids that are then running through your body are not as, how do I say? They're diluted. So they're not as potent as they would be.
It's not as electrical.
There you go. Because it's just there's just too much water in your body. So there's a lot of things that we're missing out on for many, many reasons. And that's one of them. But I wasn't going to, we're going all over the place, and that's fine. We're just chatting right now. But anyways, yeah. So
yep.
It's okay to get pissed sometimes, right?
Right back. So, family, we, again, this was just something that flowed. We just, wanted to have a talk, just a simple conversation, just to kind of recap before we end the podcast. We started off just letting you guys know that, just because you are an emotional being, you have emotions, it's feedback, understand that. The thing is, the first step is to understand, obviously, you are not a mind, you are not a body, you are not an emotion. You are the power that animates the mind, animates the body, and animates the emotion. Understand that. You are the energy that projects these things out. But these things are tools. These things are feedback mechanisms, okay? So the feedback you get from a particular feeling. Notice compassion. If the first words for compassion is compass, it's a spiritual compass. And it guides you into where you should, should you stand up for yourself? Just like if a vaccine is coming in, if they're trying to mandate a vaccine for your child, right there is controlled aggression, is compassion, your compass, your feeling to protect the innocent, to protect spirit, So again, this isn't just to be meditation, and spirituality isn't just about being passive. It connects you to your true nature and true, what we call feelings. And you know what, Chris? I'm pretty much, I'm done, I don't got, anything else you guys want to share?
Yeah. I just want to say that definitely like to leave it on a positive note. And one of the things I want to say is that everybody's capable of being fully independent of this system. It's just we've been so conditioned with so many layers of so many things in so many areas of life that it seems just impossible to get out of what you might be in. But there is a way out, and sometimes it's layer by layer. I personally, I do have a lot of experience with it because I've been the weirdo and I've studied a lot of this stuff, and this is the kind of thing that I'm going to put out there. And Mark and I, our goal really is to free people. It's to free people. And the way they're freed is not by fighting something that really is irrelevant when we stop paying attention to it, but we free people by teaching them how to be free in their own lives. And then as they become free, they can teach their family and their neighbors. And this is how it works. We free ourselves, we free each other, and this is what we want to do. And it starts with food, because when people get scared of things getting scarce, what is that thing that you're most afraid of becoming scarce? Food. And your drug dealer knows this. He knows this. This is what they use. So you got to free yourself from that addiction. That doesn't mean you have to never eat again. Even if you were able to go, a week without just food, like if you could do that on a regular basis, just reaching that level, you could still be drinking stuff even, but just get to the level of not having to have food. That's freedom. Even if you knock it down to one thing a day, it's freedom. It's more freedom. There's an ultimate freedom, which is not needing food at all, getting rid of the addiction completely, and that's totally possible. And I recommend that people work on this, because food is killing you slowly but surely. So I wanted to throw that out there. That's the foundation, honestly. This is the vehicle we're in. It's a physical reality. People might think we're going to get, they're going to get carted into the new world. They're just going to wheel on in. No, it's not going to work that way. You've got to do some self-development. That's how it's going to happen.
Right.
So, anyways, that's all I have to say for now.
All right. Awesome, man. So once again, family, hope that you enjoyed the conversation. There'll be much more to come. Wholeness and vibrations.
Yes.
All right.